Hello dear friends, welcome again to my YouTube channel Geotechnical Engineering Consultancy Tips. Today I will be telling you all about initial and routine pile load test, the difference in definitions of them, necessity of the test, that when is it required, when they are required to be done at the site, number, that is frequency of tests required, and when they are required to be tested in which very particular cases as per Indian Standard Code IS 2911 Part 4 2013, which is Design and Construction of Pile Foundations Code of Practice Part 4 Load Test on Piles, second revision. Now, the definition, necessity of the test, that is when is it required. So dear friends, what I am telling you is that this is applicable for each type mode of loading, that is whether it is a vertical pile load test or a lateral pile load test or pull out pile load test. Now, initial pile load test. This test is done on initial test pile at the start of project. That is, when we have decided to go in for pile foundation at the site, we decide at the design load and the dimension of the pile, the length and the diameter, etc. And then we get that initial test pile constructed at the site and get it tested by loading it either to its ultimate load or to 2.5 times the estimated safe load whichever occurred earlier. This test is usually done on non-working piles. Now, routine pile load test, it is carried out on a working pile, which is the part and parcel of the real-time foundations, to check whether the pile is capable of taking the working load assigned to it without exceeding the permissible settlement limit or not. If not, then the pile is assumed to be have failed in the further design load. This test is done on working piles which are or going to be part of the actual foundation. Now, as per clause 5.1 of this code, initial test is required for one or more of the following purposes or reasons. That is, determination of ultimate load capacity and safe load of the pile, setting up the limits of acceptance for routine tests, to get an idea of suitability of the piling system for that very particular site, and to check the calculated load by dynamic or static approaches कि एक्चुअली में जो भी हमने पाइल का डिजाइन लोड तय करा है कैलकुलेशन बेसिस पे, वेदर दैट हैज बीन सक्सेसफुली टेस्टेड, द पाइल हैज पास्ड और नॉट. Now, as per clause 5.2 of this code, routine test is required for one or more of the following purposes: checking the safe load as determined from static analysis as per IS 2911 Part 1 Section 1 to 4, IS 2911 Part 2 and IS 2911 Part 3. Detection of any unusual performance contrary to the findings of the initial test if already done, and workmanship. That is, these are the very reasons why these initial pile load tests and routine pile load tests are being done at the site. Now, number, that is frequency of tests required when they are required to be tested at the site. Initial pile load test, the number of initial tests are selected as given below depending upon the nature of the subsoil strata, number of piles and past experience at the site. But the code suggests that for small size projects, for piles less than 1000 numbers at a particular site, a minimum of 2 tests are to be done. For large size projects, that is for piles more than 1000 in numbers to be executed at the site, a minimum of 2 tests for first 1000 piles and additional 1 test for every additional 1000 piles need be tested at the site and part thereof. Now, the frequency of testing stipulated above for this initial pile load test is applicable for each diameter of the pile and rated capacity of the pile in each type mode of loading, that is vertical compression, uplift and lateral load. The number of tests may be increased or decreased depending upon whether the strata is erratic, uniform, subject to a minimum of 2 tests being performed at the site. Now, routine pile load test. The number of routine tests shall be 0.5% of the total number of piles to be executed at the site, subject to a minimum of 1 test at least to be done at the site. The number of tests may be increased up to 2% in particular cases depending upon the nature, type of structure and strata condition. Now, if we say initial pile load test, why they are required to be done? They are required to be tested at, on or before the start of construction of real-time pile foundations, so as to enable us, the civil engineering team, the contractor, the designer and everyone involved in the construction stage of the building, including geotechnical engineers and design engineers, so as to enable us to decide that the actual load carrying capacity of the pile or the safe design load values are what? Are they exactly as per our calculations or have they gone haywire? So that कि हम अपने प्रोजेक्ट को शुरू करने से पहले डिसाइड कर लेते हैं कि ये पाइल हमारी इस लोड के लिए सेफ है, तो अब हम ये पाइल करेंगे ताकि हमारा बीच में काम ना रुके, सो दैट आवर वर्क इज नॉट इंटरफेयर्ड इन बिटवीन. नाउ व्हाई द रूटीन पाइल लोड टेस्ट नीड टू बी done at the site? Why they are required to be done at the site? This, the criteria is decided on the following points. If we encounter any abnormal variation in concrete consumption while constructing the pile, if we find any sudden drop in concrete level during construction of piles, or if we encounter any problems during boring and trimming operation which are unusual of the routine construction activities. Fourth point after ABC is this D1. D, significant variation in depth of pile with respect to other adjoining piles in boring record. E, fifth one, anomalies observed during the driving operation in case of driven piles. F, sixth one, piles under sensitive locations of structures. That is, if we have constructed a working pile and maybe during geotechnical investigation we would have found that that was a very weak zone, the pile must, or rather say you can say can behave differently. So in that very sensitive locations piles are designed and required to be tested so that to have the worst case scenario notifications being observed at that very particular site. G, that is the seventh one, any doubt arising from non-destructive test results. That is, whenever any pile integrity tests are being done and we find some abnormalities out there, then we need to decide on that कि this pile should be tested. So dear friends, this is what I wish to explain you all in this lecture of mine. Namaskar and thank you for your patient hearing. Keep on subscribing to my YouTube channel Geotechnical Engineering Consultancy Tips. Thank you very much.